system. I mentioned the customer demand is increasing, and the repair of the west feeder has been completed. So the west feeder is operational again. So if we need it, we can flow water through the west feeder to the north. Here's a picture of the of Monday, the recharge coming online at the High Desert Water Bank, showing flow into the stage 2 area. So congrats to the whole design team, CM team, and construction team for getting stage 2 completed and online ahead of schedule, so that we could take advantage of Met's request to start banking out there. So, and last slide is upcoming events. We have the Water Master meeting we mentioned on next Wednesday at 10 a.m. It's not on the list here, but this week, Wednesday at 10 a.m. is the advisory committee for the Water Master as well. We do have a holiday coming up for Memorial Day, Monday. Oh, it says Tuesday, but maybe that's me. I think it's Monday. And then we have our North LA County Region membership lunch and presentation at Avek, part of the CSBA group, right? Is that Drew? Yeah. Drew's an actual board member on that group. It's on the 29th at 11:30, and I'm going to give a brief overview of Avek at that meeting and a little presentation about our banking operation, so that'll be fun. And then the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association meeting is coming up in mid-June on the 13th at 6 p.m. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We'll move on to director's reports. If there's anybody would like to report, attorney's report, we don't have any.
No report, George.
No report.
Okay. Request for future agenda items?
Mr. President, not sure if this is the right place to do it, but I want to let you know. I sent an email with a bill that Assemblyman Juan Carrillo's introduced on the Joshua Tree issue. I sent that to Director Miller as the chair of the Joshua Tree Committee and Matt just earlier. I just forwarded it.
Oh, okay.
But it might be worth looking at without getting into
Great, let's
discussion. So
get as much information as we can, because it's a hot topic right now.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, we do need to go into closed session, and we're the potential legal action with CV Communities. So if we could have a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. President, I move we go into closed session.
Director Parrish, we have a motion.
Second.
The second with Director Van Dam. Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thanks, bro. Have a good one. Drive safe.
Recording stopped.
A nice day with a very beautiful view right there. The first order of business, Madam Secretary, if we could have our roll call.
Division
Oh,
7.
let me go back. Angel, will you please lead us in the pledge? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we'll get to the roll call, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller. Here. Division 5, Robert Paris.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Drew Mercy.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
General Manager Newtson,
Here.
Attorney Markman,
Here.
and Holly Hughes present.
Okay, yeah, thank you much. That brings us down to item number 4, a voluntary public roll call. Roy's, glad to hear from those maybe listening in, and if anybody's listening in, they're certainly welcome to comment or talk about anything on the agenda also. Who do we have this evening?
Kyle.
Okay, thank you.
George, John, you can stand.
Hey, John.
Jack Cephas, White Fence 3.
Hey, Jack, yeah, we miss seeing you guys up here to the meeting. Come up and visit us sometime.
No, sometimes we're just screwed up.
Oh, no.
Joe Long with Stantec.
Okay, you're welcome.
Tim Leo with Montgomery and Associates.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, appreciate it. And item number 5, moving on, it's public comments. It's very open to the public, so anybody who wish to comment on something that's not on the agenda, now's the time to do so. We'll move to item number 6, adoption of agenda, and that's adoption the minutes for the regular board meeting of May 14th.
Mr. President, I move we adopt the agenda. Ms. Rob?
We have a motion from Director Paris. Second from Director Van Dam. Really wants to take a second, review it. If not, we'll move on.
This was to adopt the agenda.
Good job, Ted. Okay, Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Yep, motion carried. Okay, and then we'll start to get down to the meat of our agenda. Item number 8, the Finance Committee, and Director Donato is the chairman of that committee.
George, it's the minutes.
Oh, excuse me.
7A1.
Okay, we'll go back to 7A1, our minutes, so,
Mr.
April
President,
30th right there. So motion would be in order.
Mr. President, I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Director.
NA1.
Okay, Director.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. If there's no further questions, Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, now that'll bring us down to the Finance Committee, and Director Donato is chairman of that committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. We'll start with A1 and consider impossible action to accept and file the check registry list for the period of April 18th through May 1st. And our general manager Newsom will go ahead and give us an overview.
All right, thank you, Director Donato, appreciate that. So I was not at the last Finance Committee, but John, Teresa, Justin, they all filled in nicely, did a great job. So the checklist that Director Donato mentioned begins on page 11 of your board packet. And just a couple of real minor highlights. Items number 1 and 2 on the checklist are both for DWR. Item number 1 is payment for about $1.9 million. And this is our fixed monthly cost or charge that we pay each month, no matter how much water we take from the State Water Project. Goes towards the repayment of the capital associated with the operation of the State Water Project. And then item number 2 is associated with the variable cost of move of water down to the Antelope Valley. So just over $231,000 for the month of March, and we moved roughly 1,000 acre feet during the month of March. We'll see the variable go up in the coming months because, as you know, the board authorized water banking. So we've started that Monday of this week, and you'll see the future expense associated with that. Everything else on the checklist is pretty straightforward. It's been reviewed by the board previously on approved purchase orders or the finance committee. And then the smaller dollar amounts have been reviewed by myself. So be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Mr. Director Donato, I'll move on board order 8A1 to accept and file the check registry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on 8A1. If there's no further comments or discussion, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Terrace,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried.
Okay, that brings us to 8A2, consideration and possible action on the fiscal year of 2024 and 25, treatment chemical supply contracts, and our operations manager, John Bozigian, is going to give us an overview on that.
All right, thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, Board. So every year we go out for treatment chemical bids. We go out to suppliers. There's 3 chemicals we use at our water treatment plants. Aluminum sulfate for coagulation, sodium hypochlorite for disinfection, and zinc orthophosphate for corrosion control for our system and our customer systems. We typically send out these RFPs to over a dozen companies, and we always hope to get as many responses as we can. And every year, seems like we get about half a dozen. That's all we seem to get. So how we write the RFP is we look into our anticipated demand and how much of that demand is going to be surface water, how much is going to be groundwater. That determines how much alum, how much hypochlorite we think we're going to need. And so we based it on about 38,000 to 42,000 acre feet for this fiscal year. With that being said, we sent out the RFPs. We did get some results back. Eco Services typically has gotten our alum contract for the last several years. They're very competitive. We're their market. Metropolitan is a huge market, and then there's smaller markets, but we're that mid-range market, and they always seem to do very well. So their cost per, they price it by the dry ton. Their cost per dry ton was $520. This is per dry ton. That's a 4% increase over last year. Not too bad. JCI Jones also has gotten the hypochlorite contract for the last several years, and they submitted a price of $1.93 per gallon of hypochlorite. That's actually a 4.5% decrease from last year, so that's pretty good. And then Thatcher Company, who we've dealt with for years for zinc orthophosphate, turned in the low bid of $1.03 per pound. And that's also a 4.5% decrease. We don't see that very often. The board did ask us several years ago, can these companies increase their price during the contract year? And the answer is yes, they certainly can. If raw materials go up, they will increase their price. But we've asked them to show, show us why you're increasing it. We want to see some backup data of why you're increasing it. And I'm happy to say that last year, we received no price increases during the contract year, so that was good. So with that being said, the total price for Eco Services is $807,300. JCI Jones is $415,143, and Thatcher would be $231,404. So our total treatment chemical budget, we're anticipating to be $1,747,852. So we would ask the board to support a $1.8 million treatment chemical budget for 24-25 fiscal year.
Mr. President, I had a quick question. John, what did we pay last year for the same chemicals altogether?
Okay, so last year, since we're kind of halfway through the fiscal year, I had Teresa, who, I mean, anything you ask her, she has the numbers. She's great at that. I said, why don't you give me a a calendar year account of what we spent. And so last year, our budget was $1.7 million for the calendar year, and we spent $1,680,000. So we were pretty close. Let's not expect that every year, but we do look into the crystal ball and we have to create our budget, but we were pretty close last year. So I anticipate it being close this year.
Thank you.
John, I had a question. So is this then bought for a year at a time? Or is this bought for 1 year at a time, or is it move every month when we get chemicals to it? How's that work?
So what they do is we tell them you need to supply so many gallons or truckloads of these chemicals from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. We anticipate we're going to need this much product. And they say, okay, well, it's going to cost you this much for that amount during the fiscal year. And that's kind of how we price it, or how we anticipate what we're going to pay.
Right.
But they invoice on actual deliveries per month.
Oh yeah, Gary. If that's what you were asking. We only pay for what we get.
Okay.
So they'll invoice us monthly for those.
Okay, so they're bringing product every month?
Yeah, they're
or
bringing
weekly.
Weekly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting. Sometimes we get a load of alum during the summer every day, truckload,
Right.
and then we'll get hypochlorite probably once a week, distributed to the different facilities.
Do you see that chemical changing anytime soon as far as they're always coming up with different ways and treatment?
Yeah, we've tried, Gary. No, I think we made the decision to go from chlorine gas to sodium hypochlorite years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't see that changing for disinfection. Coagulation, certain things you can change. We tried ferric at the acting plant years ago, and that did not work very well for coagulation. So aluminum sulfate seems to be pretty much the standard of what Avek uses, and it works pretty well. Yeah, I don't anticipate it changing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the board order, there's no further questions. 8A2, and a consolidated amount of 1.8 million for the various chemical suppliers. It's broken down on page 15. So if there's no further questions, the motion would be in order.
Mr. President, I move approval of Board Order 8A2.
This is Director Donato, second.
Director Parrish, Director Donato. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John, hang up there. Okay, so the next one is item 8A3. Consider possible action on approving a purchase order with farm pumps and irrigation for rebuild, rehab existing pumping units at the various agency facilities, and not to exceed the amount of $128,707 budget capital project. And John will give us an outline of that too.
Okay, so as the board knows, we have lots of pumps. We have pump stations, we have pumps within treatment plants and so forth. So part of our capital improvement plan every year is to rebuild pumps that are kind of approaching the end of their useful lifespan. Some we have to replace, most of them can be rebuilt. This year, we're targeting the Quartz Hill number 3 backwash pump. We have 3 pumps at Quartz Hill. We've already done 2 of them. This will be the 3rd one. And typically when you rebuild these pumps, you should get really 15 to 20 years out of them, the way we rotate and maintain them. Willow Booster number 1, we're going to rebuild this year. We have 3 pumps out there. We've already done 2, so this will be the last one. The Acton lift station, which takes water that we buy from Palmdale Water District and pumps it to the Vincent tank in Acton. We have 5 pumps out there. 3 have been done, so we're going to do the number 4 pump this year. And the last one will be our Leona Valley pump station number 4 booster. Again, we have 5 pumps at Leona Valley pump station. We've done 3 of the 5. This will be number 4. So it's hard to get a price to rebuild pumps because a pump company usually wants to pull the pump out and say, how do we price unless we know what we're dealing with? Last year, no companies bid on these projects, and you know, obviously we have multiple pumps, so we have something to compare it to every year. So no pump company wanted to bid on it except Brax Pump Company, and they do very good work. So we had them do these pumps. This year, we're thinking, you know, we got to get a little competition going. And so we talked to Farm Pump and Irrigation that typically was just doing vertical turbine wells. And they said, we want to get back into just rebuilding pumps like we used to do for you guys. So we said, well, look, here's the specs on these pumps and give us a price to rebuild them. And so they gave us a price, as Frank said, and it was about $136,000 under what we had budgeted, because we budgeted what Brax charged last year plus an escalator. And we thought that's probably a pretty close number. And Farm Pump came in very low, and they've done work for us. They've done very good work for us. So we have no worries about them doing this. So the proposed cost to rebuild these pumps, including removing and replacing them, was $128,707. And the only cost escalator they may find is the Quartz Hill backwash pump. We said you can't remove that pump until you have all the parts in stock, because we can't live without an extra backwash pump in Quartz Hill. When they pull that pump, they may find something that they didn't anticipate. I think it'll be very minimal, but I think that is a good price, and we would recommend that the board supports awarding this contract to Farm Pump for these 4 pumps in the amount of $128,707.
Okay, I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
What's the warranty on those pumps?
Well, typically the warranty would be 1 year on parts and labor, and then you know, after that, because they have no control over how we maintain pumps, and nobody's going to give you more than a 1 year warranty on them.
Okay. Are those variable speed?
The backwash pump at Quartz Hill is variable speed. The other ones are just constant. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question, John. You said there were 5 pumps in Acton.
5 lift pumps at Acton, yes.
Are they in the same location, or are the pumps progressive?
They're all in the same location at the Acton pump station. Yeah. And those are lifting about 400 feet to the Vincent tank.
And typically, how many do we run?
We will run 2 pumps at once. Hydraulically, you can't run more than 2 pumps. But what we do is we rotate these pumps. 1 month we'll run pumps 1 and 2. The next month, 3 and 4. So we always keep the same amount of hours on these pumps. But yeah, it was built with 5 lift pumps.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's basically like a backup system.
Everything, you know, as you've walked the plant before, you know, we have redundancy everywhere. Chemical pumps, you just can't afford to not be able to treat or pump water. Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay, there's no further questions or comments. We have a board order.
Yeah, this would be Director Donato. I move on board order 883 to approve the $128,707.
We have a motion by Director Donato,
Director Miller, a second.
and a second by Director Miller. Okay, Madam Secretary, we get a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Not quite. We got hydrogen.
Finance report.
Director Donato, okay.
Okay, item 8B, the High Desert, Water Bank Committee met yesterday, went through an extensive, outline of what's going on, and, I'll go ahead and say that 8B1, that we consider for possible action on award the contract for drilling package of number 3 to Bakersfield Well and Pump, not to exceed $9,457,000, $460, and project number Idaho Water Bank 20-01. And our engineer, house engineer, Justin will go ahead and give us an overview on what we discussed yesterday.
Okay, Justin?
All right. Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, President Lane, members of the board. We'll just jump right into it. We've got some fairly good news tonight. So if you recall, well drilling package number 3, this is a set of 8 wells, was authorized to be placed out to bid by the board on March 28th of this year. These are 18-inch recovery wells. They'll be drilled in a consistent fashion with the first 10 wells that were drilled out at the project site. So we'll have a pilot hole depth of 1,150 feet and an estimated screen length of 800 feet. And so as they go through and drill the well, and the hydrogeologists collect the samples, they'll design that well to what it'll end up being. So this is the spec that each contractor bid on there. Locations of the wells, this is the map that we utilize in our monthly updates. You'll see this again shortly. But the blue dots indicate the locations of wells that have already been drilled on the site. The orange are future wells, so that would be on our next drilling package. And then the yellow dots are the locations of the 8 wells in drilling package number 3. So we had a mandatory pre-bid meeting and site visit. We had 7 well drillers attend that meeting, so that was a really good response. Out of the 7, 5 of those contractors submitted bids for the project. And you can see the table shown on the screen there of who the participants were that did and didn't submit bids for the project. But if you look at the pricing that we got, the span is very good. They're all pretty close to each other, anywhere from 9.5 million to just over 14. Down at the bottom of the table, you can see the budget that we have for this project was just under 14 million. So really in all cases but one, each of these well drillers were below the budgeted number, which is good news. But even better news is that Bakersfield Well and Pump, who previously did drilling package 2, so that was the most recent 6 wells that were drilled back in 2022. They again were the low bidder, and their price came in at $9,457,460. So that's about $4.5 million under the budget for this project. And in fact, their drilling package 2 bid was $9.6 million for just 6 wells. So a lot better pricing here on this one, which is good news all around for the project. Bakersfield Well and Pump holds a current and active C57 well drilling license. As I mentioned, they recently did the 6 wells out at the High Desert Water Bank in 2022. They did an excellent job. They were very efficient. Those wells turned out great, worked extremely well with our field team, and made that whole process a lot easier. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on this, but the recommendation from the High Desert Water Bank Committee would be that we award the construction contract for this project to Zim Industries, doing business as Bakersfield Well and Pump, in the amount of $9,457,460.
No, that's quite a bit less than the second bid. You have any ideas why that?
Yeah, they're about $1.5 million under. Bakersfield Well and Pump having familiarity with the site. I went back and looked at kind of what the differences were between this package versus drilling package number 2, which was right around the same price, but for fewer wells. And, their mobilization and demobilization costs went way down this time. Their waste disposal and how they deal with the water that's being pumped out went way down this time. And then their hourly rate for drilling, it's all kind of lumped into the linear feet of drilling, but that unit cost for per linear foot is down.
Can you go back to slide?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I had a question. We didn't have anybody local to bid the project?
Yeah, Bakersfield was about as local as it gets.
Okay. That's a good price compared to before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was
Yeah,
it due to the timing? Was that an issue?
Yeah, I mean, we heard from our engineering and construction management staff that this was a good time of year, a good time in the industry to put wells out to bid, and well drillers must not be as busy as they were maybe when they did drilling package number 2. That was kind of the tail end of the drought, so I think they're just not as busy right now, and Bakersfield, obviously knowing the site, was comfortable, given a little bit better price to make sure they win it, and they've got a little bit less risk, I think, than some of those other contractors. So.
Right. I think what's happening also is Sigma in the San Joaquin is now starting to be an issue.
Yeah.
And so if it is, you could probably see those drilling companies slow down due to you just can't drill a well like you used to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Comment on this Director Donato. The committee approved the bid, the $9 million, but we also asked staff to consider, put something together for the board to go out, because we still have another 8 more wells to be done.
Yeah, 9 more wells.
9 more wells, and to go out and see if we can go to bid now during this time and try to save the same kind of money for those wells as well, which would give almost $9 million, total of $9 million savings to Metropolitan.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and we did start talking with our engineering team, program management team about getting a jump start on that so that we can get that next well drilling package out to bid and, like you said, take advantage of the favorable market.
Well, I'll go ahead and move on board order AB1 that we approve the $9,457,460 for Project High Desert Water Bank 20-01.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary, we're going to have a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Terrace,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Justin.
Thanks.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, so we'll move on to the monthly update here. Similar fashion that you've seen previously. Excuse me. Starting out with our executive summary, we know the goals of the project: 70,000 acre feet of recharge and recovery, and a 280,000 acre foot of total storage. You can see the key agreement principles on the list there, but our agreement with Metropolitan goes through 2037 with a 20-year extension option. Metropolitan is paying all capital costs for the construction of the project, and in return, they have that first priority right to the banking and recovery capacity. That kind of summarizes that. Go through into some of our short-term goals here. There's that map again, showing the locations of the wells, and the yellow is the drilling package number 3. So going down the list there, our short-term goals here, now that we've got the well drilling package awarded, we'll be working with the contractor to get a tight construction schedule from them that we can use as a basis for the level of effort for our field support for that package from our engineer and construction management team. So that'll be something we're working on, and we'll bring back to the High Desert Water Bank Committee and the board here within the next month, most likely. Item number 2 there is the authorization of bidding for the well equipping and recovery package. Stantec is working on their final design deliverable for that, and once that's prepared, we'll come back to the committee and board to authorize getting that out to bid. You'll see a timeline in here, but that's a pretty long construction duration, so it's important that we get that out pretty soon. Item number 3, this is kind of put a little check mark next to that. It says stage 2 of the recharge basins will be completed and tested. So stage 2 is the area up here in the north of the project site. and happy to report that we are banking at the High Desert Water Bank as of yesterday. Matt's got a little more of an update on that in the GM report and a photo, but that's going good. And we are testing out those northern basins that we weren't able to put water into towards the end of 2023. That kind of goes hand in hand with number 4. I think this was a note from the last meeting that Met indicated they wanted to begin banking. We did receive that written request from them prior to us starting banking out there yesterday. And then the last thing we're working on, which we'll bring back to the Finance Committee and then the board in the future, is the annual operation and maintenance budget for the High Desert Water Bank for fiscal year 24-25. So as we'll talk about some of the basins that we're recharging in. Oh, yeah.
You said we just started recharging?
We started recharging yesterday.
Okay.
Yep. So currently we're using basin number 27. It's this guy up here, basin number 25 here, and then basin 21, which if I go to the next picture, it's this large basin right here. So right up in the northeast corner of the project site. So those are the 3 basins that we're currently using right now, about 50 CFS or close to 100 acre feet per day currently in those 3 basins. So we'll learn a lot over the next couple months or so about how the recharge rates look like up in that area. Looks like this little more sandy area, so we anticipate maybe a little better recharge rate, but time will tell. So, this you've seen before, but this is kind of the project outlook. We're here obviously in 2024, and Stantec has started the site electrical design. We just awarded the construction contract for drilling package number 3, so right on target with our date for that one. Stantec's working on wrapping up their groundwater treatment study that Metropolitan had requested, and then, as I mentioned, we'll move right into awarding the construction contract, hopefully late summer, for the well equipping and recovery package, and the recharge facility should be 100% complete kind of early fall time. That kind of tracks with everything else going on, 25, 26, 27. You can see a lot of orange on there. All the orange text is our construction activity. So we're really ramping up into construction, a lot less on the design side. As far as finances goes, this table summarizes the contracts that we've entered into. And we like to look at the percentage of the contract that's been paid out on the far right-hand column. New to the table this time is just that this Blois construction, this was the aqueduct turnout contract. I've marked that now as complete. Now that we settled, all of our final payments with them, we filed the notice of completion, got no stop notices or any claims. So that was released on time. So they've been paid in full for that, reflected here with 100% on the payout for that contract. So everything else on here is tracking really well when you look at where we're at within each of those contracts and how much we've paid out. So everything looks pretty good. Next meeting, I'll break out the drilling package number 3. Here we have it kind of lumped all together, these 17 wells. So I'll split that out for a line item to make it easy for us to track. And then moving into this one, this is our summary of our capital program account. So you can just go down the months, the activity that's been in there, how much we've paid out, and what the remaining balance in that account is. So currently we've got about $5.4 million in that account. We have one outstanding invoice to Metropolitan, which is due in mid-June. That's for about $1.2 million. So they've currently paid about $90 million to the project. So that would bring it up to about 91.5 or so. And we'll get into our construction slides here. And we've got Earl Schwartz and Tian Ying with our construction management team. And I'll invite Earl up to handle the next few slides here.
Thank you, Justin, and good evening, board members. Good evening, Mr. General Manager. So tonight I'll present the only active construction on the project at this time, the recharge project. As we can see from the status at this time, the recharge project is Nicholas Construction. Contract completion, we're tracking it as September 10th, and it's looking very good. for completion. A lot of activity has been happening in the month of April and certainly within May here, so they're really moving. Stage 1 basins were completed. Of course, that's been done. Stage 2 pipeline, as Justin was mentioning, was completed. Stage 2 recharge basins are almost completed, but we're certainly utilizing 3 of those basins. The rest are getting ready to come online. Pipeline pressure testing and the tie-in at Avenue A8 and the installation of the 72-inch butterfly valve were completed in April. The grading for the turnouts 3A and 3B pads, that was completed in the March and April timeframe. The grading of the push-up berms were also completed, and at this time ongoing by Nicholas, they're installing the turnouts 3A and 3B pipelines. There we go. Okay, so yeah, right now I think I have a total of 4 slides. The slide on the left-hand side, that's looking due east from an aerial, and that's from what Justin was showing. That's kind of the stage 2 area, and that's the Oso Creek drainage corridor push-up berm area. So that will be the turnouts 3A and 3B will take advantage of these push-up berm locations on the left-hand side when they come online and when they would like to be used. Just another example of construction activity in April. On the right-hand side, the curbs for spillway basins 26 and 27 were done. So you can see a lot of activity there. All those push-up berms were done in April, and a lot of concrete work was done as well. This next 2 pictures, the one on the left-hand side, that's the tie-in at Avenue A8 and 290th. So they were preparing to do that tie-in at that time with this picture. Subsequently, this tie-in's been completed, and it's been backfilled and monitored by the earth testing company. So that's all buttoned up, and as a matter of fact, they're doing superficial improvements now of aggregate base and riprap in that location. And then the picture on the right-hand side is that 72-inch valve that was delivered in March and was installed in April. So it's a manually controlled valve that's also been installed, and at this time it's been backfilled. So you wouldn't see this now. There's just a nice superficial dirt cover on this very deep and large valve. Yes, and that would conclude my presentation, just those 4 pictures, but thank you very much.
All right. Good job, Earl. Yeah, we thank you, but where you can, try to include as many pictures as you can, because we're not out there.
Yeah.
The pictures do help.
Okay. Yeah, well, we can definitely do that. I like looking at the pictures.
In some places you can't do them, but you can probably do more.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll do that. Yeah. Great, thanks, Earl. This last slide, but just to remind the board, I mentioned this once before, but at a future board meeting, maybe our first one in June, perhaps, if we get there, we'll be coming back to the committee and then the board ultimately with the field services that we need to support joint package number 3. So just want to put that on your radar.
Explain that a little bit more, Justin.
So this would be the work for Stantec as the engineer of record to answer any questions that the contractor has if anything's unclear, review the submittals. We want to make sure that we're getting the product that they bid on, right? That was included in the spec. So they'll have to submit to us, their concrete mix, their grout, their packing, their steel. We have to look at all of that. So the engineer of record is responsible for the project ultimately, the way it was designed. So it's their effort to review all of that and make sure that they're building it in accordance with the specifications.
Is that built into the contract, or is this additional cost?
This will be an amendment to Stantec's contract.
Yeah, you didn't make that clear.
It's built into the overall project budget, yes, but it has not been authorized for Stantec yet. Did that hit the nail on the head?
No.
Not quite, okay.
Yeah, I understand, what you're saying, that it's built into the contract, but it's gonna require additional funds, right?
Yes, yeah.
Now, we need to make sure we look at that, and that's clear cut, and we just keep extending the same engineer. Matt, do you have any, comments on that?
So this goes back to discussion we've had over the course of this project. When we first entered in or went out to bid for the design engineer, we did that several years ago. And it was always envisioned that we would kind of piecemeal it. And once we knew what specifically the tasks were going to be needed by the engineer, if we had made all these assumptions years ago, the chances are they would have overinflated what the estimate or cost would be to do the whole project. So we determined early on that it was best for the agency if we piecemealed it. And as the work came online or was bid out, we knew the duration of the contract and what the exact scope is. And then we would apply their approved hourly rates that we approved a few years ago to the estimated hours.
But still, we've had the discussion that we deal with the same engineer, we don't go out to bid, and this was kind of put over, like you just mentioned there, we deal with the same hourly rate the board approved a couple of years ago, and I've heard that a lot, and just heard it, again, right now, but we need to be able to make sure we're getting the best price, just like we did on the well drilling, we get a little better prices, and I don't think this board, we're not involved in the day-to-day activities, but we need to rely upon staff to make sure that's done. And I'm not sure it's being done.
Yeah, I mean, we are critiquing their proposal, and there's a lot of back and forth on what the scope of work and the estimated hours, both by Avek and our program management team.
Well, that needs to be brought up, and that needs to be looked at by a committee also. Right?
Yeah.
But we don't, want in a couple of months and say, well, let's talk about the board, and the board approved the concept.
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like.
Yeah. And, just another point, Justin kind of hit on it. Stantec is the engineer of record for this project. So we don't want numerous engineers of record for the same project. It's best to have one engineer of record doing the entire project. They're responsible for the design and the performance of the design.
And if they know that, if they know that's the attitude of the agency, chances are they're not going to be as competitive as they should be.
Yeah. But again, I think that
we're doing every indication, them, you've got it, don't worry about it. And you're the engineer of record, and so I don't know if that's the best interest of the agency and the taxpayers.
And we can be a little more open with the board or the full board and committee on the back and forth and negotiating the fee, because believe me, it's not a rubber stamp. And we do critique the hours.
We're getting other contracts a little less than what the engineer's estimate, was. And so this might be the same thing.
Yeah.
So if we don't ask anybody else, we're not going to get our best price in all likelihood.
Yeah, I really think having the same engineer of record is very important for us.
Well,
there would be a lot of finger pointing if
you want to
we
go on
changed.
the same contractor. We started with point A to, we first started this project, or get different estimates. It's like we did with the well drilling.
Yeah.
That's the same principle. Yeah. Why don't we just go with the same well driller?
Because we have to follow the public contracting code and putting those out to bid.
You got to follow business sense, man.
Yeah. Well, we're following the program that was laid out a few years ago.
Well, let's worry about this. You keep referring back to what was laid out. Let's look at where we're going to get our best prices. But it was done 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're already showing we're getting better prices in some of the reports have been done today.
Is there a committee on this?
Is there what?
Is there a committee?
Yes, the High Desert Water Bank Committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they can review that?
They will review the proposal submitted by the CM team and the engineer. Yeah.
Well, if you don't have comparisons, you're not going to do a hell of a lot reviewing it. And we're not engineers.
Well, I mean, I stand behind my recommendation, the board has pleasure to change the approach, but I recommend we stay with the same engineer of record. And we critique
How do
the
we
scope
get,
of work.
how do we
and the
get the
fee.
best price and know we're getting the best price?
Because
Reviewing it, Matt, doesn't do nothing.
their hourly rate was locked in as part of the master agreement several years ago. So we know we're getting a good hourly rate. We know the scope of work
We don't
and
know
the
what
hours.
we don't know what it compares with today, Matt.
Yeah.
What the hourly rate would be.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to go with your approach, President Lane, is to blow up the process and then
But we're doing.
there's a lot of risk there.
But we're hearing this contractor after contractor, we stay with the same, and maybe we should on this one, but we don't review it, we don't compare it.
Well, I look at it, it'd be no different than if from day one we said, Stantec, give us an estimate to do this entire project, right?
How long have they been engaged with AVEC?
They've been engaged since 2020.
And we never put it out to bid since?
No.
4 years and going on
Well,
5 years.
let me just clarify, the engineering services and what we call the engineering services during construction.
Everything else during the actual construction, the contractors usually go out to bid, but we don't on this.
We do, but there's a clear.
No, we don't.
No, there's a clear line of delineation for the construction contracts. The engineering services is for the entire project. And I'll go back to what I said earlier. If we took the approach from back in 2020, we said, hey, Stantec, give us a proposal to design and oversee this entire project. I'm confident that they would have overinflated that estimate to cover themselves over the duration of the project.
Just remember, we didn't have to do it
We didn't have to do what?
for the whole contract. Like Boyle Engineering, we did things a little different.
Well, I mean, I look back and, I mean, we don't piecemeal engineers on other projects.
You know, this is a multi-year contract.
Yeah, but it's one project, one engineer of record, one responsible party, that if something goes wrong, we have.
How long do you see this process going? How many years?
So we have drilling package number 3, most likely drilling package number 4. We have the treatment facility and the electrical distribution as well as the well equipping. So this process will continue, unless we change it, over the next 2.5 years, roughly. And we'll have a handful of contracts.
We don't not know if this is appropriate and economic or not. And it could be economic, it might be a sweetheart deal. We don't know.
Yeah.
Without comparing prices.
Well, I think our checks and balances is the scope of work, critiquing that, and reviewing the monthly invoices that Justin goes through in detail to verify the hours and make sure it lines up with the time spent.
Okay, we're not agreeing on this, so
Yeah.
going further than that, but anyway, let's continue.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Well, that wraps this up, and like Matt mentioned, and Director Van Dam, when we do receive these proposals, we will go back to the High Desert Water Bank Committee, and we can have a good, thorough discussion about the process and what we're setting out to do at that point in time. But that wraps up the monthly report. But be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have, this is Director Donato.
Sure.
Why is this a board order?
No, this shouldn't be a board order.
Okay, I just want to, okay. That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
no, this is
It
just
was
a
for information only, wasn't it?
information item. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I
Thank you.
will jump in what George said. I'm not gonna, prolong this because I'm, chairman of the committee, but, he's got a lot of valid points and, we don't take people's word for anything. It's, done through a process and, they've done a good job. But when you don't go out to bid, you don't check, check you don't know if you're getting the best bid. And right now, a perfect example is what just happened with the wells. You know, we came on our budget. You guys all did a good job, saved over $4 million. But keep this in mind, what George is saying and what the board is saying for the committee, so we can discuss this deeper, make sure and reassure that we're not, the Met is not going to be gouged, you know, by their fees. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, thank you, Director Donato. Okay, so there's no board order on this, so that, does that conclude the report?
That concludes my report.
Okay, yeah, thank you much. Okay, we'll move on to item, Water Master and Groundwater Committee. That's Director, Paris.
Mr. President, I'll have Matt, take this item.
All right.
Go ahead, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Paris. So, seems like we just talked about this, and we actually did at the last board meeting, but the way the Water Master meetings lined up, the next meeting is scheduled for May 22nd, which is next Wednesday. So, being that we don't have another AVAC board meeting, thought we should cover the agenda at this meeting. So, got a few items on here. The actual Water Master agenda is in your packet on page 52. And a few highlights. One item being discussed is the TOG groundwater budget and scope of work for calendar year 2025 through 2027. So as you know, TOG groundwater, where the Water Master and Advisory Committee both supported working with TOG groundwater for another 3 years and authorized the Water Master staff to start negotiating a contract with them. So Angel put a few slides together here, kind of highlight this. On the left, you can see their current contract, which covers the year 2022 through 2024. And the annual fee was right around $220,000 a year. On the right, you can see what they're proposing for the next 3 years. So good news here is the fees come down a little bit for each of those years. Year 2025, they have an optional task of about 30,000, 28,000 additional optional tasks. And that's to do some, improve the way that they collect data on the monthly or the groundwater production numbers from the producers to make that more efficient. So the Water Master will discuss that optional task or not. But if the board doesn't go with the optional task, the fee for the next 3 years is right around $200,000. So you're probably asking, why did it come down? A big part of that, or most of it, is because of the groundwater model update or preparation. That was built into the previous amendment, and they charged annually to update the groundwater model. So now that that model is essentially complete, the future cost is just maintaining the model. So that's why we're seeing the reduction in fee. Any questions on this? No? So good news that didn't go up too much.
Right.
Or at all. Next slide shows the new productions. We got one new single family residential new production request for 1 acre feet per year. In the middle, you can see new point of extraction. This is 40 AA Water Holdings. So they acquired a production right a couple years back, as well as some carryover water. And they're requesting to pump that water for a solar facility that's going to be located near Boron. It's just south of Boron along Highway 58, pretty close to the Kern County, San Bernardino County line. The last item there is we got a couple of transfers. We have the 5 Lions or V Lions to AVAC, and that's 10,000 acre feet of one-time carryover transfer. And this is to close the loop on our deal we did with 5 Lines in 2023, where we exchanged State Water Project supply for their carryover water. This was reviewed by the advisory committee back in April. They had some questions, so we provided that information to the committee and to the water master engineer. And the water master engineer is recommending approval of that transfer. So we think we satisfied all the questions they had. The last one is a one-time transfer between Palmdale Water District and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District. They have a long-standing agreement to do a transfer each year of various water supplies that they manage. So it's 580 acre feet, one-time transfer. I think those were the highlights. I don't think we had anything else on there. So, again, this is an opportunity to give direction to Director Paris for the May 22nd Water Master meeting. Happy to answer any questions.
As long as we have a consensus, I don't think we need a board order on this.
Correct.
I have one question. On that 10,000 acre feet from Five Lions, what's AVAC gonna do with that water?
So it gets added to our groundwater rights. You know, we have our annual production right water. A good portion of that gets leased to LA County Waterworks per our existing agreement. AVAC retains the rest of it. We also get some return flows. And then this one block of 10,000 acre feet will be added to those supplies. So in our application to the water master, we identified Bench Ranch as the location where this water would be pumped. So in years where we've maybe have low allocation water from the state water project, or we've depleted our bank supplies, then we would rely on this groundwater supply.
So we would carry this water over for the meantime?
Yeah.
Until we pump it?
Yep, until we pump it. Right.
Did we get clarification on that carryover water on the storage, or is that for a different day, Rob?
Yeah, Gary, that's still in process. We had our first memo from our attorney that was presented to the advisory committee and to the water master board. There was a lot of discussion on it. We're probably still a year away from finalizing anything. We're making it real clear we want a lot of public input on that. And I think one of the big issues on the first draft of the recommendation is the potential of losing carryover in the future. And I think the advisory committee and the board, water master board, made it real clear that barring any unforeseen circumstances, that's not the direction we want to go.
Right. Yeah, I was kind of surprised when Pardon had made a comment on carryover water possibly going away. That one caught everybody off guard.
Yeah, I think it's just the first round. We're looking at what other water master groups are doing.
System. I mentioned the customer demand is increasing, and the repair of the west feeder has been completed. So the west feeder is operational again. So if we need it, we can flow water through the west feeder to the north. Here's a picture of the of Monday, the recharge coming online at the High Desert Water Bank, showing flow into the stage 2 area. So congrats to the whole design team, CM team, and construction team for getting stage 2 completed and online ahead of schedule, so that we could take advantage of Met's request to start banking out there. So, and last slide is upcoming events. We have the water master meeting we mentioned on next Wednesday at 10 a.m. It's not on the list here, but this week, Wednesday at 10 a.m. is the advisory committee for the water master as well. We do have a holiday coming up for Memorial Day, Monday. Oh, it says Tuesday, but maybe that's me. I think it's Monday. And then we have our North LA County Region membership lunch and presentation at AVAC, part of the CSBA group, right? Is that Drew? Yeah. Drew's an actual board member on that group. It's on the 29th at 11:30, and I'm going to give a brief overview of AVAC at that meeting and a little presentation about our banking operations, so that'll be fun. And then the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association meeting's coming up in mid-June on the 13th at 6 p.m. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We'll move on to director's reports. If there's anybody would like to report, attorney's report, we don't have any.
No report, George.
No report.
Okay. Request for future agenda items?
Mr. President, not sure if this is the right place to do it, but I want to let you know, I sent an email, with a bill that Assemblyman Juan Carrillo's introduced on the Joshua Tree issue. I sent that to, Director Miller as the chair of the Joshua Tree Committee and Matt, just earlier. I just forwarded it.
Oh, okay.
But it, might be worth looking at without getting into
Great, let's
discussion, so.
get as much information as we can, because it's a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, we do need to go into closed session in where the potential legal action with CV communities. So if we could have a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. President, I move we go into closed session.
Director Paris, we have a motion.
Second.
A second with Director Van Dam. Madam Secretary.